The following video, made for the Juliana vs United States project by 10 Trips Around the Sun Theatre, is being broadcast as part of the CUADC Online season. Please be aware that this production contains descriptions of climate change and environmental destruction, and will run for 21 minutes. The footage used in this film was collected prior to the national lockdown, and social distancing rules were followed during the process. We hope you enjoy.
In my hometown in India, there were floods. And it was quite devastating. Where I'm from has a large part of its industry is agricultural, and obviously this was really awful for kind of the local economy, and also for just the state of how people were living. So where I'm from is in the eastern part of India, and I think learning a bit more about kind of the geography of it made me realise that, and researching more really made me realise that places like, for example, Bangladesh, which are neighbouring to where I'm from, are going to be some of the worst hit places, and they will be probably one of the first countries to be submerged. They'll have millions of climate migrants. There'll be some really serious effects that climate change will have, and it's not necessarily Bangladesh that's burning all these fossil fuels. So I think it's like understanding that accountability that these governments have to play. But I'd probably say that was the biggest moment where I was like, this is kind of beyond just using plastic straws or switching off the lights.
I had always felt very excluded from the climate movement, to be quite honest. Being a woman of colour, being young, even I'm from London. Even things like the XR protests. I at the moment I live in East London, and Canning Town is just up the road from me. Climate change activism is incredibly disconnected from the people who supposedly it's meant to be for.
Hi, I'm Shakira and I'm a performer in this production.
Hello, my name's Amy Lever and I'm a performer.
I'm Ella and I'm the producer.
My name's Odette and I'm the director.
Hi, I'm Sonali Singh, and my role in Juliana vs United States is as a performer.
Hi, I'm Lily and I'm the sound designer / composer for the production.
My name is Nafisa. I'm a performer with the Juliana vs United States project.
Hi, I'm Emily Moss and I'm the assistant director.
My name is Annabelle York and I'm the production designer for Juliana v United States. Working title.
Has it got a name yet? This play is about a real-life court case that happened a few years ago involving many young plaintiffs and attorneys in America who decided that they needed to fight for their right to clean air, to clean water, to an environment that they can live in and that they can grow up in. And so they are taking the US government to court and trying to fight for their constitutional rights to life and liberty.
This show is about a group of young people standing up to their government, the US federal government, on climate change, an issue that's affected them all in really different and traumatic ways. And through their different stories, you get to see how the issue of climate change is really intersectional with race, class, gender, and I think there's something there for everyone to relate to.
To describe the play to someone, it's interesting because I have been doing this quite a lot with people, but my answer has changed quite significantly from when we began the process. And the process is essentially us doing a lot of research in order to create a script, which is not what I think people expect when you talk about, oh, I'm doing a play and I'm an actor or a performer. They expect to get a script, but we are making the script, and in turn the process is the play in a way.
We've started very much from a research point of view. We have gathered many pages of information. We have scoured court documents, we've read interviews, we've done live interviews with a couple of key people in this story, and we have pieced together all of this information in a collaborative way, and we're trying to make scenes using the real words of these people and make it not a linear story, not a beginning to end chronological account of what happened, but a theatrical experience of what this court case means to people and what it means to us. And yeah,
I think people have been really receptive to it, which is really exciting. I definitely think when you tell people, hey, I'm doing a play about a climate lawsuit, that sounds really dull. But I think people are excited that it's verbatim and that we're doing all of our own research and that we're creating the script together and collaboratively. I think that's something that's quite, or something that's not seen here that often.
I've never been a part of anything like that where everybody mucks in and does a bit of everything. There's no assigned roles. There's no hierarchy. The fact that I'm an actor, but I'm doing the same job as, you know, the sound designer, as the director, we're all getting together and doing the exact same amount of work, which is really amazing.
To read Levi's testimony, Levi's story, he's the youngest plaintiff and was, I think, 8 years old when the process started, and his story of how rising sea levels are affecting his home in Florida and the effects it has on his life emotionally, and it affects his ability to go to the beach, it's affecting his family. That's, like, I won't give away too much because I'm sure it will feature, but that story is just really hard-hitting but really beautifully told.
I think with regards to the plaintiffs, definitely reading about the, this is quite sad, but like the tougher elements of the case. So like Nick and Aji, we were thinking about the other day, and the kind of the pressure that they feel and the pessimism that comes with it, and the, you know, the delay of the trial and how they feel like that, you know, it'll never end and it'll go on forever, I think is something really heartbreaking, and just kind of sums up why it's so important that more and more people know about it and why we kind of amass this pressure, even though we're all the way over here in the UK.
I think I'd say Vic Barrett's story stands out to me the most personally, just because he represents potentially everything that is intersectional or needs to be intersectional about the climate justice movement, because he's not only African American, he's also Afro-Latino, he's also trans. There's such a huge need for like intersectionality within the climate justice movement, which there isn't really at the moment, which is part of what we are trying to show in our play, is the need for a more inclusive climate movement.
I think the person I've been most attached to in this story is the lead attorney, Juliana Olsen, who she's an amazing attorney, but also she cares very personally about this case. And there's lots of interviews where she talked about how having kids was one of the main things that drew her to environmental law, and then that drew her to looking at the principles behind this case, and then to these plaintiffs. Having kids was the main thing that changed her mind, and I think that's a really personal thing to build a case on, and I really respect her for that.
What would justice look like for you?
It's a good question. I like that question a lot. Justice looks like courts saying that young people have a right to a climate system that protects their lives and their freedom and their happiness, and it also looks like courts holding governments accountable for very, very quickly moving our energy systems to clean energy and off of fossil fuels. It looks like governments around the world leading the way to protect our soils and our forests and our wetlands, so that we can draw down all that excess carbon dioxide. that's in the atmosphere. And it looks like, people around the world and their communities having access to the things they need, including clean energy, and figuring out how to be in community with one another and take care of communities without having industry dictate how we live. So I think there's something in here about justice being about our freedom to not be tied to systems that destroy life.
Challenges, I would definitely say yes, mainly being the legal jargon in the court documents. The court documents are arduously long and can be hundreds of pages, and they often use very long words and very fancy ways of describing things. And I think, obviously I'm not a lawyer, so it's been difficult to interpret that in a way, but it's still been useful to kind of better understand the legality of it and how this case is actually even valid, which is still pretty crazy to me.
I think the subject matter is really challenging. It's hard when you get on a train of research to kind of detach yourself from it at the end and leave it behind, because there's so much to research, there's so much to this story, and it just keeps on going, and it's really easy to get sucked up and get too involved in the research. So it's difficult subject matter as well, but it's really worth looking at.
The government accepts as fact that the United States has reached a tipping point, crying out for a concerted response, yet presses ahead toward calamity. It is as if an asteroid were barreling toward Earth and the government decided to shut down our only defenses. Seeking to quash this suit, the government bluntly insists that it has the absolute and unreviewable power to destroy the nation. My colleagues throw up their hands, concluding that this case presents nothing fit for the judiciary. On a fundamental point, we agree. No case can single-handedly prevent the catastrophic effects of climate change predicted by the government and scientists. The majority laments that it cannot step into the shoes of the political branches, but appears ready to yield even if those branches walk the nation over a cliff. While all would now readily agree that the 91 years between the Emancipation Proclamation and the decision in Brown v. Board of Education was too long, determining when a court must step in to protect fundamental rights is not an exact science. In this case, my colleagues say that the time is never. I say it is now. Where is the hope in today's decision? Plaintiffs' claims are based on science, specifically an impending point of no return. If plaintiffs' fears, backed by the government's own studies, prove true, history will not judge us kindly. When the seas envelop our coastal cities, fires and droughts haunt our interiors, and storms ravage everything between, those remaining will ask, why did so many do so little? With respect, I dissent.
Some of the stuff has been challenging to read emotionally, either because it was just so amazingly frustrating. The United States is the only United Nations country that hasn't ratified the UN Convention for the Rights of the Child.
I think I've learned, as I think everyone will say, I've learned a lot about climate change, but also climate change in the legal process in America and how that works, and the public trust doctrine and the way that kind of things are created, like law is thought of, and not created is probably the wrong word, but kind of utilised in order to argue these cases, and also how to combine such a huge, terrifying, difficult topic with something that I think is very close and dear to all of our hearts, which is theatre and performing and the arts, and trying to kind of get this big, huge idea and turn it into something that can be kind of processed and enjoyed by people.
Every time I step into this process, I learn something new. I've obviously learned a huge amount about climate change and about the law and about how the US Constitution and how the US system is set up and all of those kind of factual things. I've also learned how to effectively collaborate with people, because I think that's something that can be really tricky, fostering those relationships and then making them effective in a work context.
I'd say there is so much to learn, but you don't have to know everything. You just have to know a few things, the key facts, what's going on now, what are our governments doing, what they're not doing, and what can we do as individuals, which is tiny compared to governments, but it's such a daunting topic, but you can't be daunted by it. Just research anything that it takes your interest.
My mother's boyfriend also owns a store on St. Thomas in the US Virgin Islands, which was devastated by Hurricane Irma. Damaged the airport, caused a decline in tourist numbers and local customers. As a result, his store has barely managed to stay open, and my family's income has been so detrimentally affected. We did not have enough money even to allow me to attend my father's memorial service in South Dakota.
My fondest memory is the first time that everyone got on Zoom, because you create this, you pitch it, and then you create this plan, and you're all on your own doing it, and then all of a sudden your amazing team is on Zoom, and you think, wow, this could actually, with these people, this could actually be something and could actually happen, which is so exciting.
Honestly, I think just any time we're in the room together has been really nice. I think, the best part of it is when you know when to be silly and when to knuckle down and actually write something, and I think we're starting to get there, and it's just nice balance of oh wow, Nafisa's written this amazing, brilliant scene, and the room has been silent for 10 minutes as she's done that, and then we come together and we've read it, and it's oh my goodness, we're actually doing this now. But then also the moments where Annabelle's how can I do some lighting design, and she gets out her phone and she turns the torchlight on and pretends that she's in a club or whatever, and I think it's the kind of mishmash of those that is kind of why we do this, and why we come together and we make these things, and we work at it so hard. All of it has made me smile.
We had to do an improvisation exercise where we, myself, Nafisa and Shakira, we would have to continue a narrative of a story, and the story was about head teacher and how we'd broken into his office, and I just randomly said at the end, they were reading an autobiography that the teacher had written, and I was I can't think of what to say, and I said, he wrote, "Life is like a whale's mouth. It's dark and wet," and I don't know where it came from, and we all just corpsed and laughed because it was so representative of where we were at in that moment. What a time.
I think the moment in the process that made me smile would have been probably watching video recordings of the plaintiffs' speeches that they made when they stood outside the courthouse. And I especially like the speeches of the younger plaintiffs just because they are so impressive for their age, and they also have so much humour, and their lives have often been really negatively, even detrimentally affected by climate change, and they still manage to still have a good sense of humour about it, and I just love that. I find that really admirable. So I definitely enjoyed watching those speeches, because for me that was the moment where these characters weren't characters anymore. They came to life, and they were people. They were real people that we were representing.
I think my dream for this play would be that the people who we're writing about, these plaintiffs, get their goal, which is they see some real material change, and climate change stops being this thing that we just talk about and something we actually do things about.
This show, I think, is so diverse and also really poignant that I think no matter who is watching, whatever the audience member, they will find something in that to connect with. I think right now especially, feeling connected and feeling represented and feeling heard is so important when we're living in really isolating circumstances. So I hope that in making this performance about standing up and trying to find some justice, people can feel a bit more hopeful.
It's a story of hope about 21 awesome young people and the amazing adults around them, taking on the United States government on an issue that is important to everyone on the planet. And it's told through their own words by us. What more could you want, really? Apart from me, I'm not on stage.
I think all of us are making history every day by everything we do. You all are making history right now just in having this conversation and writing the script for the play and carrying it out. And all of these moments are going to change the course of history, right? And I think what I hope is that we have enough of an impact that people in the future will look back at this moment. They'll look back at the cases young people brought. They'll look back at the art you created and they'll say, that's when people really changed the course for the better instead of locking us into unstoppable climate change.
Thank you for watching this video made for the Juliana versus the United States project by 10 Trips Around the Sun Theatre. It was directed by Odette Baber-Straw and produced by Ella Pound. The performers are Amy Lever, Nafisa Awiya, Sonali Singh and Shakira Allen. The production designer is Annabelle York, the sound designer is Lily Blundell, and the publicity designer is Daphne Adam. To find out more about the CUADC Online season, please visit CUADC on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. Thank you for watching.